Hello everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp, and today we're going to take a look at a game that loads of you have asked us to over the last few weeks, but it's been crazy busy as you've probably seen. It's the game Core Keeper, and we've teamed up with the publisher to bring you this sponsored video, so we will have a copy or two to give away.
Yep, just let us know what's your favourite game in this genre and exactly what genre that is. Obviously we'll let you know as the video goes on, but suffice to say you'll be doing a lot of battling and crafting as you make your way through this game.
It's developed by a team called Pugstorm, who I've got to be honest I've not heard of before, and it's published by Fireshine Games, originally releasing in early access in 2022. It's like a survival sandbox adventure RPG. So what is everything you probably need to know about this game? Well, let's find out. So in Core Keeper then, you play as an explorer who's been mysteriously drawn into an ancient underground cavern, and you're trying to uncover the mysteries of what's known as the core. This is a powerful artifact found right in the center of this cavern, and similar to many of its contemporaries, things like Minecraft, Terraria, a lot of the narrative is discovered through general play.
Moving on to gameplay then, and you'll start off right near the core as Marc just mentioned, albeit it's powered down at this moment, with three mysterious statues also in the vicinity. You have a basic wooden shovel and pickaxe, and depending on the character that you create at the beginning and the class that you choose, an other weapon or accessory, and you'll need to start tunneling your way out into the vast world that you'll find the other side of the walls that you'll need to break through.
Yeah, so if we split the game basically into its core areas, things like mining, crafting, building, farming and combat, we'll go through each of those as well as multiplayer, which we played a huge chunk of actually because it got a bit too addictive and we didn't stop playing for about 3 hours.
That's right.
So we'll talk you through each of them. So yeah, let's start with mining then. The game basically features a completely destructible world. So you can break through walls, again very similar to Terraria and Minecraft. You get different levels of pickaxe, I think Glen mentioned. And as you mine, you gain resources. So that might start out as just bits of dirt. It could be more rare components. And then you'll reach specific mining points that you can break down depending on if you've got the prerequisite tool for the job.
Yeah, so you'll find ore along the way, and obviously once you start to acquire some of this, you can smelt it down and then use this to create better armor and weapons and whatnot as you go through the game. It almost has like a tier system in terms of the armor and the accessories you have. You start with the basic wooden, as I mentioned. You can then craft copper, say for example, then tin, etc, etc. But obviously you'll need to find these resources for that to be possible.
The world's split into biomes, and it does have random generation as well, so that each time you play the game, those biomes might be located in slightly different areas. When you're mining, you will have to go to specific ones to find things like tin and copper ore for then hitting those different tiers as Glen spoke about there. But that aspect of the game will feel very familiar to fans of this genre.
Yeah, the ore can also be used to create newer workbenches. So you'll start again with a basic workbench, and this will give you access to certain items, but then you can make a copper workbench and so on. And there's also things like an alchemist table as you move, way on further into the game and find more unique items, shall we say, or materials at least, that allow you to build these.
Absolutely. Now, I probably should have said right at the start that there are several different game modes. You don't just have to play the standard mode. There is also a creative. There's a harder difficulty mode as well as the standard one. So you've got a few different options in that regard. But basically, once you've gathered up all of your ore and stuff and defeated a few monsters, which you could either do with your fists or one of the several classes that you can choose, which Glen did mention right at the start, and probably a good time to talk about. He chose a fighter, so he started with a specific loadout, which included a sword, didn't it?
It did, that's right, yeah.
And what did I go as? I think I went as an adventurer.
Yes, I remember the item, I don't remember the class, but you had a lantern, didn't you?
Yeah, I did indeed, and the game really does feature a world that requires light. So light and dark plays a big factor in your exploration and your ability to do so, because you'll hit a lot of areas that are completely pitch black. You can craft torches as you go, but you'll have finite resources to do so. So having something like the lantern was a big help, because I could light the way, then you charged in with your big rusty sword.
Yeah, exactly. So playing in multiplayer, obviously that was a nice combination early game. Otherwise, before Marc joined my game, I was making wooden torches, and obviously there is an abundance of wood, don't get me wrong, but anything early game you're having to find whilst being quite weak. So having that help was much appreciated, and that allowed us to go and find better resources to better equip ourselves to move further on through the map.
Now, one thing I noticed with Core Keeper very quickly is that it gives you a real sense of purpose. basically around the center of the area that you start in, you've got these mysterious statues or pillars that you have to put components in to gradually unlock the various bosses. And it's that focal point that you tend to build your first base around as well. So you're always coming back to this area that prompts you in the right direction. I really like that.
Yeah, so you build that base up, again, using the bits that you find on your travels. And you can also, there's also like a farming element, isn't there, where you will find seeds and you can bring these back and not only grow ingredients for creating food, albeit you do that too, but almost more weapons in terms of things like pepper bombs and what have you that you'll find very useful against some of the tougher enemies.
With the base building, you do have things like walls that you can put up. You can put up doors, much to Glen's annoyance. He went away on an expedition and came back to find walls everywhere that he didn't enjoy.
Yeah, it was just a case of wanting to move through and get out quick, and all of a sudden I had to like knock on the door and find me key and whatnot.
He came back and Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen was there, like decorating the house.
Yeah, almost tripped over his cuffs.
So there's quite a few avenues there for people that want to go down that path, or you can almost sack it off to a degree, but you will have things like monsters that attack your base, and you've got pitfall traps and spike traps you can put down to try and mitigate their effect.
Yeah, it's one of those where there's never a part of it you can completely ignore, but you can play it at your own pace. Mm-hmm. So you can play hours of it without even thinking about a boss.
Yeah.
Forget there's even bosses in the game and just do your thing. But at some point, if you want to make some progression, obviously you'll need to start doubling down on the other aspects that you have been ignoring to that point.
So combat then takes a few different forms, obviously depending on what class you choose, but also what gear you've got. So Glen had his sword, that's standard, you're just pressing a button to swing that, aren't you? There's no stamina system that I saw.
No, your weapons can break, so there's not a stamina system, but you they can break and you can repair them. And also you have the skill system whereby any time you use anything, that could just be walking, you'll gain skills in that particular area, and then you can open a skill tree for that particular skill, for want of a better word, and unlock new skills or stats or buffs, that sort of thing for those particular skills. So for example, it could be that you use less stamina when mining if you go down that route, and because they're so easily acquired, these skill points, because you're just naturally doing it, you'll find yourself getting quite strong quite quick, which is nice.
Do you know what? I completely forgot that actually. There's a lot in Core Keeper that, again, if you like this genre, you're going to love Core Keeper.
Yeah, for sure.
The skill tree just adds an extra layer. It means as you're running about and you see that your running ability's improved, and like Glen says, you can then start to put points in to make yourself permanently better in a specific area. It adds a lot more worth to everything you do, for want of a better word.
And also, it reminded me a bit, in a strange way, of Romancing Saga 2, which I've been playing recently, in that if I got to an area where the enemies were relatively weak compared to myself, I'd use a ranged weapon like a bow or a staff to try and build up those points rather than continuously use my sword. And it's having those skill points meant that I was doing that, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered, Yeah.
And with the boss fights that I mentioned, they'll basically stick to a specific biome. So you might come across one that, has slime on the floor, and that may or may not be where you face the first boss, and things like that. And you're constantly on the lookout for new types of enemies, because they're introduced reasonably frequently, depending on how much you explore. And some of them are brutal, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, they can get very difficult. If you do die, you'll lose. How do I put this? Let's say that everything you have on you at that time, some of it's in your pockets and some of it's in your rucksack.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the game explains it exactly that way, but you get the idea. If you die, you'll lose your rucksack's worth of stuff and need to go back and find it, a la Dark Souls, that sort of thing. And if you pick it back up, obviously you get your bits back.
Yeah, I guess the perfect description of this would be, I said Minecraft and Terraria, but also Stardew Valley. It combines almost all those three games together, which is a glorious mix, really, when it's done right. And I think they've done it almost perfectly here. We did mention multiplayer right at the start. You can play with up to 8 players, but you can't do that on a single console. So we had to connect another console who owned the game as well and play online. Glen setting up the match, and joining was relatively easy. So the game runs on the Unity engine, which has been used a number of times on Switch. With the 2D pixel art style, you would expect and hope that it would be running at 60 all the time. There are drops, unfortunately. There's a couple of drops. Now, you do have a couple of options in the menu, one of them for a 24-bit mode and one of them for 15-bit. Initially, I didn't notice a huge amount of difference between these, but 15-bit mode will actually run much better. So if you are having some performance issues in some of the later biomes, and it isn't all the time, as you can see from the footage, in fact, it mostly runs fine, you can actually fix a lot of that by switching it to 15, at least until they patch it up.
Yeah, aside from those minor performance blips, the actual aesthetic of the game I think works very well. You know, a lot of these games do go towards pixel art, and it does work with that top-down view that you have, and the different biomes that you'll find all have a general theme. You know, slime, Mark mentioned earlier, for example, and it's nice to discover these as you go along. It does add some variety to the game.
For me, the biggest win on the artistic side of the visuals is using the 3D lighting engine with this pixel art style. So if you're holding a torch, you'll see the light kind of bend around the corners as you light up a new area. It looks great. It's a lovely effect. We've seen it used in loads of different games now. Especially a lot of these HD 2D games use a similar thing for their lighting engine, where it's a mix of 3D and 2D. And it just looks fantastic.
Briefly on to the music then, and it was quite an interesting choice actually. It's very serene for a lot of the game, which does work well when you're exploring. You don't want something too bombastic that's kind of blasting your eardrums as you go along, but it does also lead you into a false sense of security sometimes, you know.
Yeah, it reminded me of like Morrowind menu music. Like, it's just very chill, very Elder Scrolls style, and then like Glen says, it leads you to a full sense of security. You'll hit a boss or something else and it kind of dynamically changes and gets a little bit more intense. The game retails at £15.99, although there is a physical of this one as well. I don't know if it's a code in a box, Glen, so you'll have to tell me. But it's currently only £16.99 at Argos. That's not its retail. I think retail is like £26 odd physically. So I might have to pick that one up.
Yeah, that's a very good deal. It also looks as if it has a sale on the eShop at the minute, albeit only in some regions. You're looking at 25% off up until the 3rd of December. I think that may be exclusive to North America though.
Yeah, America, Canada, all of those lucky people. $14.99 at the moment there, isn't it? Wow.
I mean, for this price, even at the full price in some regions as it is, the amount of hours you could get out of this game potentially, especially if you have other people that own the game and you can play online with them, you'll definitely get your money's worth. If you have any sort of affection or affinity for games such as Minecraft or Terraria, as Mark mentioned, you'll know what you're getting and you'll get sucked into it very quick for sure.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the games here that really benefits from multiplayer as well, though.
Yes.
Like, it just is more enjoyable with a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I did play a good couple of hours single, though, before Mark joined the world that I'd created. And, these are not necessarily my sort of games. I don't play them often. But after the first sort of 20 minutes where you're acclimatising to what you have to do, I said to you, didn't I?
Yeah.
We were in the same room. I said, this is good. You just get that feeling, don't you? This is a good game for sure. And when you joined, as you say, the enjoyment factor increased again.
Absolutely. It's almost an essential if you enjoy this genre. If you like the games we've mentioned, I think you'll love this. There's a few reviews out there as well if you want to go check other people's opinions out. I know Isha Gaming did a video on this as well, so go check that out. But just thanks to all of you that enjoy the content, I think that's basically all we need to say about this one. Let us know in the comments what you think of it. Let us know maybe your favourite in the genre, and we'll give away a few codes directly to you down there.
Absolutely. If you're an old hand at this game, you've played it before and you have any advice for new players, please do feel free to stick it in the comment section as well. That would be good. A thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.